Fight Night Cowboy vs. Cowboy pre-show. So we're just going to kind of go over the fight card for you guys. And in the meantime, because there's not really any fighters in the current EA Sports UFC game that are on the current fight card, we're going to do it for Anderson Silva Bisping for the next event for you guys. So while we are just going to go over the fight card and everything like that for you, more about UFC and the up-and-comers, and kind of a learning experience for all of us. We'll put it to a 3-round fight. Normal, we'll put it at the MGM Grand for now, just because I don't feel like taking the time to actually look up the venue. Alright, so we got this fight going here, so Lyle, I'll pass it over to you just to kind of give us an overview of the fight card here.
Right on, thanks, man. Alright, so, how's it going, guys? Basically, I like to call these kind of cards, we got them on a Sunday, it's kind of off time than usual. I like to call them the warm-up cards to a big event that they're doing. Of course, what you're seeing right now is this fight that's going to go on next Saturday, Mike Bisping versus Anderson Silva. Pretty excited about that, but not saying that this card that is going on tonight, it has had some really cool fights, some really good fights. And good fights still come up, really good up-and-coming fights to watch. Some guys aren't in this game, but you're most definitely going to see them as really strong characters in the second game, just because they had a lot of progress since this release came out. With the fights that have already went by, I'm not even going to try to, the guy who won the very first night of the fight of the night, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. He's got one of those Russian last names, Abdurakhmanov versus Hamilton. And it was a kind of a slower pace fight. The guys kind of like slowed down a little ways through, but they were really throwing down. And the Russian, the hard to pronounce name, ended up coming out with the win. In the next one, we had a women's bantamweight fight. A newcomer that's 3-0, or coming into it was 3-0. Bashos versus, I believe it's Lauren Murphy, the last name Murphy. Anyway, Murphy's fought the likes of like Liz Carmouche and people like that. She's had a couple fights in the UFC already, and the ones that she's had have been top level female fighters, and she stood her ground and did very well in them. On the other side of the ring, the girl that was 3-0, she's actually a really well known on the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu circuit. She's a really talented submission artist and grappler. And she actually surprised in the first round. She came in 8 days. She was an injury replacement. Came in got the call 8 days ago. And in the first round, really impressed with her stand-up. It really hurt Murphy for the first round with the stand-up, which wasn't really expected, being that she's more jiu-jitsu. You really saw what Murphy's made out of. She pushed through and really put a hurting on Bashos, who was a bloody mess by the end of the fight. And Murphy ended up actually getting a last-second finish. There was like 10 seconds left, and the ref couldn't keep going. The girl wasn't defending, but it was like one of those awkward situations. But it was impressive nonetheless. Next fight after that was he had who I don't remember if it was the last fight, but recently had fought Holly Holm and lost versus Ashley Evans Smith. And that was actually a really good fight, back and forth fight the whole way through, and Ashley Evans Smith ended up taking the win there. I'm not sure where the card is. I didn't actually look that up. I should have, but
I can find that out for you while we're going here. It's in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Oh, that explains it. I grew up, or didn't grow up. I lived in an area just outside of Philadelphia. And if there's something I've learned about moving from place to place, it's people in Pennsylvania. They are very hardcore sports fanatics, and they're loud about it.
Well, there you go.
My nice way of putting it, because
they're dedicated fans, is how we'll say it.
They almost booed Ashley Evans Smith off the octagon after she got her win, and I don't really like hearing that kind of stuff. It's kind of annoying to hear, but I guess if they're that passionate, I'll give it to them.
Well, hey, I live in Vancouver, and we rioted when we lost, so...
You also rioted when you won, so who knows?
Well, there you go.
That's Montreal. Then you had an Ultimate Fighter alumni, Nathan Toy versus but another fighter by the name of Webb. Coy ended up coming out with a unanimous decision, which is kind of stereotypical. If you've seen him on The Ultimate Fighter, he's a very grind him out kind of style. He runs his mouth like Chael Sonnen, looks in the fights a little bit like Chael Sonnen, but yeah, he's kind of honestly he's starting to bring things together. He's a very well-rounded fighter all around, but he just realizes wrestling, so he's not the most entertaining of fighters. I missed the one fight, which was Smith versus Augustus Lelesso. I'm guessing on that last name there, where Smith came out with the win. So I can't even really comment too much on that one. You should probably check it out yourself. And then coming up right after that, the last fight that just happened was Daniel Serafin versus who knows how to pronounce his last name. I'm going with Bang Bose. I've seen him around fight a couple of times before, and he's got a really strange, awkward style. Honestly, kind of I don't know if any of you guys watching out there remembers could you as a fighter, but kind of honestly weird offbeat style. So could you had, except for this thing, just guy can actually hold his own now. That fight was a good little back and forth fight, and right near the end of the first, Bang Bose delivered a brutal head kick that put Saffordin on the mat, and I would definitely suggest, if you can, going through and watching that. It's one round of your time, less than 5 minutes of your time. It's a dang good fight.
They're both pretty scary looking guys, so.
Yeah, they're both big boys. Safian was actually supposed to fight on the Ultimate Fighter Brazil finale years ago, and I believe it was an injury held him out. So he would have been this big name person that was supposed to break out of Brazil years ago, but unfortunate circumstances held him back, and now we got up-and-comers putting him to sleep. So it's not looking great for Daniel, but on the other end, it's looking good for Van Bose.
Well, you never know. The underdog can always pull out a win. In the UFC, anything can happen on any night, right? So.
Yep, that is correct. Going live right now, if you guys are watching the fights or looking to watch them, we got Alex Garcia's fighting Strick right now. Alex Garcia's been around for a bit here. He's actually looks like he's fights out of Montreal, Canada, which I gotta cheer for him because of that. I'm always behind my Canadian fighters, especially if they're out of the Montreal area with your GSP and such.
Yep.
So like I said, that one's going on live. It's just about to start right now, so if you can't do a fight pass, tune into that. But that is going to be a good fight. You have Alex Garcia is just a monster, and Strickland's just a very good tactician. So this should be a heck of a fight going on.
It's a power versus skill match going on. Garcia looks like he's going to have some size on him for sure.
Yeah, he's got the well, you got Strickland's definitely got the height and quite a decent reach on him. He's a lankier fighter, but Garcia's definitely the built fighter, the stocky guy. You got Daniel Carlos versus Shane Campbell coming up on the main card. Now that we're all caught up on the prelims, the main card's coming up here at 9 o'clock.
Give me your gamer I got PS4 now.
I can't remember. Kraus versus Shane Campbell. And both these guys they've been around for a little while now. Kraus a while longer, but they're both very, very strong, well-rounded fighters. And Pascal Kraus is he's known to be a really good grappler as well, and so you can try to look for Shane Campbell's got a little bit of an unorthodox stand-up, so you can see maybe like a flash knockout from him, or potentially a good some good grappling, maybe a submission from Pascal Kraus is my prediction on that one. After that, you have Chris Camozzi versus Diesel Joe Riggs, which I don't know if anyone who may be watching this out there, I don't know if you guys have you watched the Bellator card the other night, but it was a gong show, to call it best. There's a bunch of out of place except for not like famous. Diesel Riggs used to be a pretty famous fighter way back in the earlier days of the UFC, and Chris Camozzi's just kind of been a journeyman for the last like almost decade. Well, a little less than that, but just to put into perspective for Diesel Riggs for how long he's been fighting, he's 41.
That's pretty wild.
The guy's got 57 fights on his record going into this fight tonight. Like the guy's been there and back and then went there again. So he's definitely got the experience on her, but I have to say that also is going to be the downfall on him. He's had a lot of miles on that gas tank, and it's he still shows up a lot better than I would expect him to for the miles he's put in, but he's definitely shows the wear and tear. Well, Chris Camozzi kind of is staying pretty consistent still.
So it'll be an interesting match.
Absolutely. If I were to pick anyone, I'm going to go with Chris Camozzi for sure in that one, just because of like what I was just saying there.
He's a little bit fresher.
Yeah, they both have tons of miles on the tank, but if someone's going to have some left, it's going to be Chris Camozzi.
What is your GT?
Less time. He's been through less wars, and he's been in the era of UFC that is the smarter era of fighting, really. Not that if you go back to the early days of the UFC, it was people standing in front of each other and punching each other until they stopped moving. And I think Diesel Riggs caught a good portion of that. Now where fighters are fighting better, I think that fighters are taking a lot less damage over time. Next fight after that, moving on in the card, you have Dennis Bermudez versus, I'm not going to pronounce his whole name, but Kawajiri. If you've ever heard of Kawajiri, you're an old school MMA fan. He's been around the block. He fought back in fight for a while, made a good name for himself. He's had his ups and downs in the UFC here. And then Dennis Bermudez is one of those fighters that another one that came from the Ultimate Fighter. And when he was coming out of there, he looked pretty promising. He ended up losing in the finale. He was doing really, really well. He almost won the finale and then slipped up for a second and got caught in an arm.
Does move though.
But since that point, he's actually, from being like a stocky kind of wrestler with the hands, he's really evolved into a very, very, again, solid MMA fighter all around. But his stand-up is something to appreciate. It's something to watch. It's something that, like, if you go and watch him from a couple years ago and watch him now, you're like, holy crap, that guy's not even the same fighter almost. And not to mention that Dennis Bermudez, a good portion of his UFC fights that he's been in, he's walked away with the fight of the night. So a guy goes to war every time, and he can really perform. So that's probably my number 2 favorite fight on this card to look forward to, for sure, behind the main events. We got a 5-0 Mendez, who I'm actually unaware too much about his background. I haven't heard much about this 5-0 Mendez, and he's fighting Cody Garbrandt, who is 7-0. So we're gonna have between that fight, we're gonna have someone's gonna get the first blemish on the record. And someone's gonna walk away still undefeated. Cody Garbrandt he's an up-and-coming fighter. The UFC loves him right now. He's tattooed up and he looks pretty, so it's hard for marketing. But he's also an incredible fighter once he gets in there, and he's got a ton of heart. He's definitely again one of those up-and-coming fighters that you want to keep your eye on.
My GTO's
so
tips
after you're
here.
done having your mind blown by
You can
Dennis
find the
Bermudez
links
throwing
in
down
the description. Be sure to join our
tune into that
community
one,
through
'cause that one's gonna be
KillTrain's
good for sure.
profile
That's
on
coming
your
up afterwards.
PS4.
Going into the co-main event of the night, we have Canario versus Derek Brunson. Again, this card's, like I was saying, it seems like it's very much so a warm-up card for next week's Anderson Silva event. And Mike Bisping, those are two of the most famous worldwide fighters the UFC has and highest paid. So imagine they're, pulling some strings. But the Canario, I haven't seen a whole lot from him. I don't. He's not someone that I would claim to have a solid knowledge basis of him to predict how he would be able to perform. Where I know that Derek Brunson is a beast. He's one of those fighters that you look at him and you go, that guy's a scary motherfucker, you know, like he's coming for you, sort of thing. And he throws heat, and he's all over you. And so just because I'm aware of one name, you know, I do a lot of videos and all that. That generally to me means that they have a fighter that they want to continue hyping up, so they're giving them someone who has an all-right record and that nobody really knows. Hopefully, in the boxing business, they call it giving them a tomato can, which is you're fighting someone that you probably can be fighting someone who's
when
a lot
you
more
play Dying Light, can you make funny montages?
The idea is to hype you up overall. It's not this fight, it's your next fight, potentially, or whatever. That's all, look how bad he beat this guy. That being said, it is also, it's MMA. And I've seen Ryan Bader get choked out by Tito Ortiz before, so, you know, anything can happen. Then moving into the main event, any single fight card that has Donald Cowboy Cerrone on it, I tune into. That guy is arguably my favorite fighter, period. The guy throws down every time, comes forward, and he's a straight talk, you know, he's not playing into the stuff. You don't hear him talking about Conor McGregor trying to sell himself.
Instead of just missions.
You know, and if you don't know who Donald Cerrone is, you don't know fighting, so you don't need too much of an introduction to him. He's a crazy guy, and he's always fun to watch. And his Muay Thai and his Jiu-Jitsu are just on point. On the other end of things, we got Alex Oliveira. Alex Oliveira, there's a lot of Oliveira in the UFC. Cowboy Oliveira. So the battle of the Cowboys. I didn't like him when he came into the UFC at first, specifically because he had the same nickname as Donald Cerrone. And part of me went, I really hope one day they fight, specifically because of that, and this day has come. But over the time that Oliveira's been in the UFC, he's really impressed
Thanks for the feedback. You can check out our first Zombie Kill of the Week video and let us know what you think in the comments. We will G.
Really good jiu-jitsu. He's from Brazil. I mean, you got jiu-jitsu when you're from Brazil. But he's just one of those fighters that, where he looks a little bit stocky and he may not look as flowy and nice as some fighters do, he's got that crazy one-shot power that he doesn't really need to. And then his grappling's there to back him up. He's a little bit more well-rounded Brazilian version of John Hendricks is essentially what I'm saying.
Interesting.
So I'm still going to go ahead and say Donald Cerrone's going to win it. Even though that Donald Cerrone's making his first fight at welterweight. He's never fought at welterweight before. He's moving up a weight class to do this fight. He's a weight replacement for an injury. But that's what Donald Cerrone does. He picks up random fights all over the place. As long as he can get there, he's on the card fighting. And consistently, when you go through the fight card, the fights that he's had, the ones that he's had long for training camps to prepare for a big fight or anything like that, he really doesn't do well in. Every fight that you see him in, he got called a week ago, and they want him there to start fighting some Joe Blow that he doesn't have any time to start training for. He guy's ass. And it's just Donald Cerrone's thing. I think he gets too caught up in the mental game or something.
That's one thing I've noticed about him, is that it seems like he performs well under pressure.
Well, yeah, it seems like when it's in the pressure keeps coming, he just pays him. The other thing that's really bad about Donald Cerrone thing, though, is that the first round always screws him over. You always hear him say it too. I'm a slow starter. First round, I don't know why. But if you go through his fights, the first round of most of his fights, he gets beat up a little. No, takes him a couple minutes to take him shots before he also wakes up.
Look at Anderson Silva. I mean, in his fights and everything like that, the first 2-3 minutes of the round is him just standing there, you know, trying to figure out the other guy's rhythm and movement, and then once he's got that figured out, just moves in for the kill, right? So he may not know or think that's exactly what he's doing, or maybe he does, or whatever, right? But it's definitely there.
I absolutely agree. I think that's exactly what it is. And I think, you know, you're saying, I don't think he's like fully aware. I think that Anderson knows, hey, I'm going to take the first bit of this fight, just keeping my distance and getting this guy's timing and everything else. Where Donald goes in there and he's just ready to fight, but he fights best when he gets that measurement and everything else, and he doesn't actively do that thing where Anderson just stays away and dances around and kind of makes a show for a little bit to get that timing down. He just goes straight into the fight.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my long-winded rundown of tonight's fight card. In the comments there, guys, tell us what you think of the fights that have happened, the ones that are going on, and the ones that are about to happen. Tell us what you think's gonna, any outcomes, rounds, knockouts, submission. Let us know. And when the fights are over, let us know what you thought. Freak out a little bit on there. Be like, holy crap, did you see that head kick or something? We'll get right back on it with you. We'll reply. We'll get a good discussion going on in the comments.
And just as a closeout, you guys saw that there. The preview of the Anderson Silva and Michael Bisping fight ended in decision, with Anderson Silva winning it at the end. So we'll see at the next event how that turns out, and if that was accurate at all. So thanks, Lyle, for giving us the overview of the fight card there. The fights will be live in about 10 minutes, so be sure to check them out. There'll be some pretty good, exciting fights, and thanks for watching, guys. We will see you on our next event preview, which will be for the Michael Bisping versus Anderson Silva fight, which is on, I'm just going to look at here for you, Saturday, February 27th. So it'll be next weekend, and we will be live just before the main card starts for that as well. So be sure to come on back, subscribe to get notifications for it, and we'll see you then. Have a good one, everybody.